those who sit in the room, those who hear this, those who read this in the future, let me ask you a question. Can't you feel it? Can't you feel that which is time speeding up? A paradigm you were used to since you were born, and it makes you nervous, doesn't it? Wakes you up at 3 in the morning, where the cells are saying, what is it that's different? And you have no answer. Well, I just gave it to you. Next time you're awakened, and the cells are asking you what's wrong, I want you to talk to them. As the boss of your own DNA, remind them of the time you planned for. This is it. When the earth would vibrate higher, human consciousness would make decisions. The beginning of crossing the bridge of swords. The beginning of peace on earth. You're sitting in it. You're part of it. Your children will see it. Meanwhile, it just looks like bad weather. What did I tell you 22 years ago? Look at the words carefully. For what I described was about water. I described places on the earth, potentially, that always grew your crops that would then be arid. And places on the planet which never had any water, which would have plenty of it. Perhaps too much. And that has to give you a sample, perhaps, a puzzle of logic. What does it mean? It's about water, and it always has been. And so now we refresh that which we have said before. What is beyond that which is political? You are in the middle of a cycle that will bring cooling to the planet. It is not a heat cycle, it is a cooling cycle. But it starts with a short heat cycle. It has been here before, it will come again. It is a long cycle. Let me give you the potential duration of this cycle. 1 generation plus 5 years. That's how long it's going to be cold. It starts with the melting of the ice caps to a certain degree that are far more than any of you have seen in your lifetime or many of your ancestors. A cycle that is thousands of years long, that has not yet been recorded. That would be in books. It's definitely been recorded in the cores of the ice, in the rings of the trees, but not in books. Thousands of years old it is. It happens in a cyclical way. It's about water. It starts with that which is the melting of the ice caps to a particular degree, which has a profound effect on the planet in all ways. You can't have that happen without seeing life change as well as Gaia change. And you've seen it already. What happens when you take that which is heavy on the poles, which you call ice, and you melt it to that which becomes cold water, added to that which is a very, very gentle and finite balance of temperature of the water on the planet? The first thing that happens is a redistribution of weight. The weight of the water redistributed on the very, very small crust of the earth creates cracks. And that makes earthquakes and volcanoes. And you've seen them, aren't you? Earthquakes in places that are not supposed to have earthquakes. Volcanoes that are coming to life in a way that you've not seen before on a regular basis. There will be more. Expect them. Is it too much to ask of a human being that if you live by a volcano that you know can erupt, maybe you ought to move? And yet there will be those who say it hasn't erupted in my lifetime or my parents' lifetime or my grandparents' lifetime, therefore it won't. You have a surprise. for all things are changing. And that is what is happening to Gaia. Now we say it again, this is not punishment to humanity. What is happening? And why would it involve weather change? Oh, how could I give it to you 22 years ago? Dear human being, it's the best news you could have. And I will say to humanity, it is slow, it is slow, it is slow, and you can get out of the way. It'll show itself. There'll be signs of trouble. And it's not an anomaly. And so you have the opportunity, do you not, to be intelligent and get out of its way. It's happened before when humanity was here, and they got out of the way. It makes sense. And so we say it again. Things which are happening on the planet are not meant as the final step of Gaia in order to kill out civilization of humanity, because that has been on the lips of those who want to startle and scare and give you fear. It's not what's happening. What is happening on this planet is a shift that will create a planet that's going to last a long time in a temperate way to give you what you need. More food in the ocean than you've ever seen before. Oh, let me talk about it. For now we get into ecology. And before I give you another parable, I'm going to give you the explanation of the birds and the fish. For in the last few weeks, fish have been washing up dead by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Birds falling from the sky. And I'm going to make a statement way in advance of what science is going to tell you. All of it can be traced to the water cycle. All of it. It's always about the weather. It is a weather you've not seen before. Do you remember a few years ago when whales were beaching themselves? Did you notice it stopped? But while they were beaching themselves, there were many who were. So many that some human beings said, it's the end of the world. They're committing suicide. Humans always navigate to the dark first, do they not? And I'll tell you why. Because that is human nature in an old energy. There'll be a day, and it'll be sooner than you think, when you'll be able to turn on your television and watch the Good News Channel. And there'll be many sponsors lined up for it. Human beings to watch the good things that have happened that day. The stories that'll stir your heart. And presented on the Good News Channel will be things that never get reported now. Like the young people in Iran that have a movement going that you're going to see that will never allow the mullahs to take over. Like the Palestinians and the Israelis and what they're doing. Everybody under 24 and what they've decided. And you're not getting that now, are you? But it's happening now. Someday, that will take place. The whales beached themselves because the magnetics of the earth shifted so greatly that their navigational system in the magnetite, in the biology, which always steered them in the right direction to migrate north and south, migrated them right into the land. The land didn't move, the magnetics did. Therefore, you might say their map was flawed. And the reason it's not happening now is because the calves, That is, the generation beyond the one that beached themselves figured it out. Nature at its best, this is what Gaia does. And so the next generation would not repeat it. It realigned itself to the migratory ley lines, and now they don't beach themselves. Magnetics continues to shift on the planet, and the birds are unaware. With the coldness that is beginning to happen, many of the birds have migrated themselves right into that which is a high place in the atmosphere and are pummeled to death by freezing rain and hail. And they fall from the sky. It's the weather cycle. Will they continue to for a while? And then they won't. Because they will have figured it out and recalibrated. Because that's what nature does. Nature's way is this way. You might say, well, it's severe. It is not. It is not severe. It is a way to let the generations of birds know to go around next time. To move it slightly south or north and not to get caught again.